people have talked about the end times for a long time, right? The rapture has been right around the corner since the 1600s or whatever. And some people love to catastrophize and talk about how everything will end on Y2K or 2012 and that is, of course, a silly phenomena. And we can look at the reasons why people do that. That is fundamentally different than the conversation around existential and catastrophic risk we're talking about now that is associated with very real and very new phenomena. And it's important to not make this confusion and say, oh, that's just people catastrophizing. So a couple things. One, it is important to get that if people have a sense of like, shit, civilization as we know it could end, and other people are like, no, that'll never happen. Every previous civilization in the history of the planet ended. Like, we don't have Sumeria or Mesopotamia or Egypt or the Maya or the Aztec or the Inca civilizations anymore. We don't have the Roman Empire or the Ottoman or the Byzantine. And some of those lived for hundreds or thousands of years before they broke down, but they all broke down. But we weren't there for those. It's history. We think it doesn't apply to us, but each of them probably thought it didn't apply to them. So this is a super important data point people should actually pay attention to. That's one point. Next part. All of those empires were local. Even if they were big, they were still local. And if they failed, lots of other parts of the world weren't affected at all. And lots of border areas did well as a result of it. The computer I'm talking to you on right now was made on a globalized infrastructural supply chain that involved 6 continents in terms of where the metals were mined from and where the oil came from that made the plastic, where the silica that made the glass, where the software was developed. No country could make this, right? So we have this radically globally interconnected infrastructure. We have climate change is a global issue, species extinction, peak nitrogen, nuclear war, AI, these are all global issues. So we have a global civilization for the first time. That never happened before, not that long ago. And so if we look at all the previous civilizations collapsed, but they were local, now we have a global civilization, but we don't know how in the history of the world to not have a civilization collapse. We can start seeing that we have a real task ahead of us, that we need to figure out some things that we have not previously known how to do. Because the collapse of this civilization doesn't leave many unaffected areas, right? And if it is, and might leave no unaffected areas, depending upon the scenario. We also, if we look at it, like many of those empires I mentioned, there are deserts now that used to not be desert because they just had unrenewable agriculture. They brought their goats to the area that ate everything and turned it into desert. So humans have been damaging the environment for a long time. But again, it was local. It wasn't like actually damaging the climate as a whole or total biomass or biodiversity of the planet, because there just weren't enough of us and we didn't have enough tech. People could do a lot of fishing in an area, but when you look at the mile-long ocean trawlers and drift nets, that level of tech is a whole different story, right? And so that's important. And then the first time we got a level of tech that could actually kill everything was the nuclear bomb, 1945, which in evolutionary time is no time ago, just a minute ago. One country had it, then just 2 countries had it. They were locked in mutually assured destruction. Nobody could use it. It was super expensive and hard to make a nuke, so we didn't have to worry about that. As we move forward, and we see that with weaponized drones and with CRISPR and with AI, one of the things that happens with an exponential technology is that, right, our cell phones have more computing power than the military's best supercomputers of 10 years ago, so that exponential curves also radically bring down the cost and decentralize exponential power. What we're getting is a world now where we don't just have a couple places having existential level tech that can watch what each other are doing and make sure nobody uses it, create some kind of control scenario. but we have a scenario where we can have decentralized exponential catastrophic tech. Again, this is unheard of in the history of the world. So now I deviated from thinking about individual psychopathology to, again, part of the context that could generate it, because if we have a world that has a scale of problem and a scale of risk that the world has never had, and everyone to various degrees based on awareness can feel that, and yet they don't know how to respond to it, what does that do to the well-being of the people in the society and how they behave and et cetera? And to the degree that they don't know how to deal with it, so they just shut off parts of their feeling. What are the other negative effects of shutting off parts of one's feeling? And if they also have to shut off parts of their thinking, right?